Hello everyone, this is Danielle Powers. I'm one of the librarians at Frost Middle School, and we just recently completed our first Destiny inventory, so I thought I would do this fairly detailed video on all the steps, what we did, how we did it. Inventory requires quite a bit of pre-planning and thinking, so we'll get into all that as well and hopefully answer many of your questions about inventory. There's some really good reasons to do an inventory. First, if you are a new librarian to your school, an inventory will help you get to know your collection very well. You'll be able to identify any books that are lost or missing out of your collection. You'll be able to identify which of those need to be replaced. That will clean up your database really well, and you won't come across books with no records or lost books as often. It's also a good idea right now to do an inventory if you haven't done one since the CiRCE conversion 2 years ago, just to make sure that all the records came over and everything is fine. You will also find most likely material that you didn't even know you had, maybe in a box in the back room, or a forgotten bit of collection, like maybe some cassette tapes or something like that, some sort of vintage thing that maybe you forgot about and you didn't even know you had. So it's a chance to weed a lot of outdated material, old stuff, identify things you don't want anymore. So in general, just get a really good handle on your collection. Okay, so not to go into too much depth, but briefly we need to talk about CiRCE. So in 2019, we converted to Destiny from the CiRCE system. And we had CiRCE for many, many years, so a lot of us are used to doing an inventory in CiRCE and might want to know what the differences are with Destiny. So first, right out of the gate, I'll say that Destiny, thank goodness, is so much easier to do an inventory with Destiny than it was with CiRCE. The biggest change is that you will not need to go to the IT Fast team for any aspect of your inventory. So if you remember that we used to have to ask the Fast team to start our inventory and to finish our inventory, et cetera, et cetera. So they are out of the process. They do know a lot about it. So if you had a question, you could ask them, but they don't operate any part of your inventory, and they don't have any access to any aspect of your inventory that you don't have. So that's a huge change, and it's a good one. And if you're new to your school, you might not know when your last CiRCE inventory was. So in 2019, we converted to CiRCE, and at that time, we did a survey of all the schools and when their last inventory was, and we made sure that every school had done an inventory within 3 years of that conversion. So the list of the schools and the results of that survey are posted in Google Drive. So we will make that link available to you. And if you need to know when your last inventory was before on or before 2019. Okay, and that brings us to the next point, very important. So things to think about before you get started. One of the traps of inventory is if you only ever do sections of your library a little bit at a time, like you'll do fiction, and then maybe another time during the year you do nonfiction, and then another time during the year you do biographies, and then another time of the year you do your playaways and your audiobooks. Well, if you only ever do piecemeal, then you lose track of maybe those collections that you forget about, or are maybe not located right in your main library, or things that are stashed in your office, or there's all these little things that slip through the cracks because you've never looked at your library as a complete whole. And especially if you're a new librarian, there may be sections of your library that you don't know about because they were created before your time. So best practice, and something that I know we're all going to be recommended to do, is to, when you're doing that once every 3-year inventory, it needs to be a full inventory where you don't exclude any parts of your collection. So I hope that makes sense. And it's not to say that you can't do inventories of sublocations. Like, it's a really good idea to do individual sublocations if you have just heavily weeded that section. Like, say you have heavily weeded nonfiction, you want to do a quick inventory of that section when you're done, just in case certain books weren't discarded properly, and you want to make sure that all your records are good. That's definitely a reason to inventory a subsection or a sublocation of your library. You can do that anytime, but just once every 3 years, you should do a complete and entire inventory. Alright, so getting started with your inventory requires some thought before you start. So first of all, you need to consider, were you going to do any weeding before you start? The more you weed before you do inventory, the less of those partial inventories you will need to do. So if you just weed heavily all over the library, then you can do your inventory and it will catch anything that wasn't discarded properly. Another reason to think about this ahead of time is just make sure you think about where everything in your collection is. Is it all in the main room of the library? Are there things in your office that are going to need to be scanned? Are there things in the back rooms or storage, or any, in a classroom somewhere? So just think about where all of your materials are and where you will need to go to scan all those items. Another thing to think about, so it really helps to shelf read your collection. In fact, if you can't do this, then you shouldn't start an inventory. So think about how much time this is going to take. It is a time commitment, and you're committing a lot of time up front, but it is going to save you so much time later if you shelf read all the shelves in your library and edge the books. So by edging the books, I mean bring each book to the front lip of the shelf, and so that the books are all lined up evenly, and making sure the small books and the thin books are not falling back behind. And that is so you can tilt each book out so that the barcode is visible, scan the barcode, and tilt the book back in without ever removing it from the shelf. Make scanning go a lot faster. Next, what will you need to get the job done? So here are some supplies. Think about who could help you with the inventory process, because the scanning takes a long time. See, we had 5 people working 2 hours a day, and it took us 3 days. So we have about 20,000 items in our collection. So that's how long it will take. Also, everyone who helps you will need a laptop and a scanner. So we set up 4 or 5 of these carts that had a laptop, fully charged laptop, logged on to Destiny with a scanner. And scanners are at a premium. We only had 2 scanners, and we borrowed a few more. But if you can't do that, you can buy another scanner if you need to. Here's a link down here at the bottom of the slide to do that. Also, you're going to need some flags. Now, we had white flags, and we had another type of flag that was brightly colored. So we have all these bookmarks in the library, so we use these. Now, the white bookmarks were used on every shelf. So as we finished scanning a shelf, then we would put the flag in the last book or between the last two books. So scan it, flag it, scan it, flag it. So by the time we were done with every shelf in the library, every shelf had a scanned flag. So we could just look visually around the library and see what shelves have been scanned. So that's kind of old school, but very handy. And then we picked another color bookmark, and these orange ones, are very visible. So we picked these to be the problem book flag. So if a scanner got to a book and scanned the book and it didn't scan properly, when that happens, Destiny gives you a very negative feedback sound. It's very clear that there's a problem with that book. And we just instructed our scanner helpers to just stop there, flag this book, put it down on its side there, and have it stick out with the flag inside. It was very easy to have a visual of what needed to be done all over the library. And then Don and I, my fellow librarian, we would go around after the scanners were done for the day. We would go around the library and look at these, and so we went around fixing all of those. And then last but not least, our scanners really appreciated these low stools that we have that can be adjustable up and down and that roll through the aisles, just so they had something to sit on as they scanned that low bottom shelf. So this stool is available on Amazon right here at this link. Okay, so let's start an inventory. So we're going to go to Destiny, we're going to log in, and then we're going to go to the back office. And the inventory module is in admin, so we're going to click admin, and then on the left side, click inventory.
So if you've done an inventory before, your old ones are here at this link, view in progress and completed inventories. Click it. And there are no in progress inventories, but over here we can choose completed, and I have a completed one. And I can look at all the books that were included in the 21,743. So now I'm going to go back to inventory, and I'm going to start a new one. So if you go over here, you see the start new button, and you also see view lost. So this is your regular lost list. There's not a separate lost list. Like say a student has lost a book and you make that book lost in the circulation function. This is the same lost. You only have one lost list. So all your inventory lost goes in the lost list. All your regular lost books, your day-to-day lost books, they're all here in this same list. So whenever you want to see your lost list, you can run a report for that, or you can just go to the inventory module and click lost, and you'll get your lost list. That's always here. All right, but I'm going to start a new inventory, so I'm going to click start new.
And we are ready to fill this out. So you can name it something that in the future, when you see it in a list of all the inventories you've ever done, you'll know which one it is. Or if there's a specific reason why you're going to do the inventory, you can name it for that. And then if you're going to do a full and complete inventory of everything in your collection, you do not fill out this call number range. This is only for if you are going to just do a subset or a sublocation of your inventory. So for instance, you could, for fiction, type F space A and end with F space ZZZ. Or for nonfiction, you could do a Dewey range of 000 to 999.999 to get your entire nonfiction section. And then just keep in mind that if you've got any other call numbers mixed in with those, like say you once upon a time got rid of your reference section and you interfiled all of your reference, but you never changed the call numbers in the system, then those will not be included in that range.
Now, circ types, very important. You cannot do all circ types, and if you click this, you'll see why. If you leave all these checked, then everything that's at the warehouse being processed for your school will show up in your inventory. You don't want to have to look for those. They're not even in your building. So uncheck cataloging at LSS and shipping from LSS. Now your shipping stuff, this stuff might show up at your school while you're doing inventory. Maybe inventory takes you a month to get done. It is fine to bring these into your collection because bringing them into your collection requires 2 steps. One, batch moving everything you got out of the box to regular, right? And then the second step is to check them all in. And that check-in process will make those books accounted for in your inventory. So if you're in the middle of inventory, you get a bunch of boxes from the warehouse, that is completely fine because those will be accounted for in your inventory as soon as you check them in. Okay? So we're going to uncheck those 2. Now, digital materials is what how Mackin catalogs the ebooks and audiobooks that you order for Mackin Via. So you don't want to count those. Those are not physical objects that you're going to have to find in your inventory, so you're definitely going to uncheck that. So professional materials is probably your professional collection and maybe your video collection. Maybe you put your videos in there. So this is your professional stuff that the students cannot put holds on. And then this is your regular stuff that the students do put holds on. So you're going to leave those 2 circ types selected. And then you're going to click OK.
All right, next section, sublocations. Okay, sublocations are pretty important. Let's go in there. So some of you might recognize some of the old sublocations that I still have in here from CiRCE. So CiRCE had the all caps sublocations, and when I created my new sublocations in Destiny, I didn't make them all caps because I wanted to know the difference between like, oh, this came over from CiRCE, or these are my new ones. So every library can have a totally different list of sublocations because sublocations are very arbitrary. It's all up to the librarian what you want to call your sublocations, what books are in those sublocations. So your list is not going to look like my list, but you might see sublocations on your list that you didn't know that you had. And those would be either they came over from the CiRCE migration or the previous librarian before you created sublocations you didn't know about. So don't uncheck those just because you don't know what they are or you feel like you don't use them, because chances are you have items in those sublocations, and that's exactly the type of thing you're trying to find with your inventory, things you don't know about in your collection and things you might want to remove or things you might want to change. So don't cherry pick these sublocations. You want to leave them all checked except, this is a big exception, big, huge, you want to uncheck ebooks. And these ebooks are all of your ebooks. This is all your Mackin Via stuff, all the things you've purchased for Mackin Via, and all of the ebooks that come in through the database subscriptions, like the Gale full text books and things like that. And so those are the ebooks that you need to uncheck because obviously there's nothing digital that you need to find in your inventory. Okay, so very important to uncheck ebooks because you do not want all of those showing up in your inventory and throwing you off. You'll be looking for things that you don't have. So physically in your library. Okay, so uncheck ebook and leave everything else. Okay, click OK. And last setup here is this date. So except for copies that have been seen on or after this date, everything will be set to unaccounted for. So don't overthink this date. Most of the time, you're gonna want to just leave this date set to the date that this is the current day. So this date will be whatever day you are doing this setup. That's the date you'll see here. There's really not a reason to change it unless you wish you had started your inventory earlier. So don't overthink this. Just 99 times out of 100, you're going to leave this date exactly the way it is. So don't have to change that date. And so look over this summary quickly to make sure this is the way you wanted to set it up. You have it named what you want. If this is blank, then you are doing a complete and total inventory of everything in your collection. Circulation types, professional and regular. Those are the two that you should be doing. If you see another one listed here, you should go into update and uncheck that one. And then these are all of my sublocations except ebook. And so because we excluded ebook, it's going to show you everything else. And we're going to leave the date the way it is. So now if you click OK here, you're going to start an inventory. Right? So this is the point of no return. However, if you do start an inventory and you change your mind, you're like, oh gosh, I wish I had not started my inventory. There is an option when you finalize the inventory. It asks you what you want to do with all the things that you haven't found, and you can say nothing. Don't do anything with them. And that's how you would back out of an inventory that you don't want to do. So you would just go ahead and finalize that inventory that you didn't want to do, and you would say, it would ask you, what do you want to do with the things that are left that you haven't dealt with? And you would say, nothing, do nothing with them. And then everything would stay the way it is. So no big deal. We will see that a little bit later. I'll show you that screen. But for now, if you click OK, you will start an inventory. And if you click cancel, which is what I'm going to do, you will not start an inventory at this time. All right, so before you start your scanning session, you need to consider whether or not you want to check this little box over here on the right side that says check shelf order. Now, presumably you've put your collection in order, you've shelf read, you've edged the books, and your collection is in great shape. If you click the box here to check shelf order, then while you are scanning, Destiny will check to see if indeed your books are in call number order. What that will do is, if it finds a book that is not in order, you will get a pop-up. So it really just depends on what your priority is here. If your priority is to get through inventory as fast as possible, you don't want to check this box because this is really going to slow you down. But if you are taking it nice and slow and the purpose of your inventory is to find maybe mistakes in call numbers, sometimes call numbers get changed by cataloging, and if you have an old book and it has the old call number, it will catch that. Maybe you've interfiled your reference into your nonfiction, and you might find a book that has the old R call number. It will catch that. So it just depends. I did not check this box while I did my inventory because I had a lot of people helping me, and I did not want them to have to stop that often for problems like that. But if that's something you want to do so that you can catch those as you go along, go ahead and check that box. Okay, so as you are scanning, you're just going to scan in this account for each barcode scan box here. And as you scan, the books will start showing up below here. And they will be there for your current session, but if you leave and come back, they will not, the books you scan will not be there anymore. It's basically just helping you, like if someone interrupts you while you're scanning, you can look to see, oh, what was the last book I scanned? Oh yeah, that book. Okay, I'm picking up in the right place. So it's just a current list for the present. And then when you come back to this screen, like say the next day, it will be clear. It will not keep track. So that way you can have multiple scanners scanning all at the same time. So we had about 6 people scanning simultaneously day after day, and it was keeping track of that person's scanned, not everyone's. So you would only see the books that this computer has scanned, and then it doesn't remember that the next time you come back. So you just scan all the books here. There's this option to upload a file, and that is if you are using the Follett Remote, which is this very expensive little handheld device that Follett sells, and then you can upload files from that. We did not use that option, obviously. So we just scanned everything one at a time. And as you scan, as everyone scans, you can keep refreshing this, and you will see this number go up and up. You'll start at 0%, and then as you scan everything in your collection, thousands of books later, you'll see the percentage go up. And this is live, and it does take into account everyone who's been scanning. So it's great to see huge jumps in that percentage number as everyone scans all day. It's great. It's very fun. Alright, so I have left our inventory at 99.99% because I wanted you to see the last 2 books that we have not reconciled. So as your inventory is going along, and each day we would do this over and over, we would look at what was left. So we see people scanning like mad all over the library, and that's obviously the stuff that is available. It is not lost, but I want to see the stuff that hasn't been scanned just to see if there's some big chunk of the collection that I have forgotten about. So you can look at the reports by going to View in Progress and Completed Inventories. I don't know why this link is so tiny up here, but it's very important. You click here, and this looks like some very basic, non-helpful information, but if you click View, you get it's going to put you in reports. So basically, yeah, we're in reports right now. There's 2 ways to get to it. Obviously, it says run report. You're like, oh, we're in reports. If you go to reports and library reports and inventory control, you'll see these same reports right here, in progress inventories. You're like, oh, this takes me to the exact same page. Okay, so you can run a report of all the things that have been accounted for, everything that's been scanned so far, and you can run that report. Although I did not run that report very often because I didn't really care about the things that were being scanned. I cared about the things that so far had not been scanned. Maybe they're lost. Maybe they're in a storage room somewhere. So I always wanted to see that list. And you don't have to actually run an official report to see that. You can go to the unaccounted for, and right now I just have my last 2 items. And if you click see details, now you're in the most useful page there is, because this is where you can go to see everything that has not been scanned. And if you want to print this list, because at one time, see, I have 2 books left on this list. At one time it was 20 pages of stuff. I think we had about 600 missing items. So you would want to click printable and then, print this on your double-sided copy machine, something like that. Say you've scanned everything that you can find in the library. You're all done scanning. You might be at 90% complete at that point. You might be at like 92%, 95%, but it's not going to say 100% until you have accounted for not only all the books you have scanned, but all the books you have not scanned. So you're going to come to this report very often, the unaccounted for and how many items that is. You're going to click see details, and then you're going to go around your library trying to find these items, and that's called reconciling. So the reconciling part has always been part of inventory. If you did inventory with Circe, that was always the last and hardest part. Like scanning was kind of the fun part, and then when you're done scanning, it was like, okay, what haven't I scanned, and where is that stuff? Okay, so we are almost finished with our inventory. So I left a few books still unreconciled just so we wouldn't be completely done when I did this video. So as you can see, we're at 99.99% complete. And if I go to the reports, we have 3 books that are unaccounted for. We have made 480 books lost, and it's great to be able to see all those titles because you can go through it one more time to see if there's anything that you want to replace. I will say that it's easier to do that as you are reconciling. So if you haven't done it already, you can use this report to look through and see, but it's a lot easier to do it as the inventory is going along. So reconciling could take you a while if you're also deciding what books you want to reorder at the same time. So if you did not do that while you were reconciling, no problem. Here are the copies that you marked lost, and you can always look at it here. Now the books that we did not reconcile, here are the last 3 that we haven't reconciled. So as you're reconciling, you're going to check this list, and it's nice because the list is usually in call number order. So as you can see, we're down to the L's here. So as you go along the shelf, you should be able to check each book as you go along. You can either click found if you find this book, and just remember that the barcode has to absolutely match. Or if you don't find it, you can mark it lost right here. Now, of course, you can also scan it here if you find it. So you can scan it, or you can just click right in the report. And this is really the easiest way to reconcile. The easiest way to reconcile is to have everyone who's helping you reconcile be in this report, marking things either found or lost as you go along. And also what Dawn and I did is we had a window for Mackin open with a list so that we could just immediately look up books that we wanted to replace. So if I can't find my only copy of A Wind in the Door, it's lost, I'm going to mark it lost. And then I'm going to immediately add it to a Mackin list so that I can replace it. And you might be lucky enough to actually find some of your unscanned items when you go to reconcile. So it might be a book that you know where it is. It's maybe sitting on the desk in your office, or you might go to the shelf and it's actually there. If you check really carefully, it might have fallen back behind the other books if it wasn't edged very well, or maybe just the person scanning it just skipped it for some reason. It didn't scan for some reason, or it might have been a book that was on a student record, which would have given a pop-up. So you might need to scan it again. But regardless, whatever the reason, if you find it, you click found, and then that book will then be accounted for in your inventory. And now I am completely done with reconciling. It says unaccounted for 0. And when I come back to my inventory, it says 100% complete. Okay, so once you are at 100% complete, that means you have scanned everything, and what you haven't scanned, you have reconciled, you have searched for those items, you have either found them or you have marked them lost. And so now every single item in your library has been accounted for. You are at 100% complete. You can now finalize your inventory. So click finalize, and it will ask you if you are sure. And yay, you are done. Okay, and now you might be asking, well, what happens if you don't reconcile? If you had time to scan, but you just didn't have time to look for every single one of those unscanned items, well, this is what happens. This is from the Destiny manual that's posted in the IT service catalog. If there are items that are left, so in this example, there are 34 items that this librarian has not accounted for, yay or nay. Couldn't find them, didn't look for them, don't have time to look for them, I just want to be done with this inventory, then you can actually mark all of those items, just go ahead and mark them lost. If they show up, then when you scan that item, it wouldn't be lost anymore. It would pop back into your available catalog, right? That's the safest thing to do. If you really don't have time to look for whatever items are left, you'll have a number here, just mark them all lost. And then if that item turns up, it'll be back. Okay. So a quick caveat, of course, you can make everything lost at this point, but those items will not stay in lost forever, right? I think DIT is planning to, the IT Fast team is going to delete lost on a regular basis, just like they did with the CERSI system. I think it's going to be every 2 years. So just keep that in mind, that those won't be there forever, but it would become an item not found, and then you can recatalog it. So that's not a huge issue, but just to point that out. And then ignore them is your other choice here in this box. And that is the choice you will make if you started an inventory that you don't want to finish. So if you don't want, you want to throw the whole thing out, you started an inventory that you didn't mean to start, you would click ignore them, do not process, and then click yes, and it would back you out of an inventory you never wanted to do. So, but that would have to be pretty early in the process. You would want to do that. Okay, with the Destiny part over with, there's just a few cleanup items to do. We had to go around and make sure that we did not miss any of the problem book flags. Don and I would deal with those usually after the scanners left for the day. We would go around the library and fix any of those on a daily basis. So by the end, we didn't have very many, but we just walked around the library, making sure we didn't miss any, and collected any of those flags. And then we dealt with the Mackin orders for anything that we realized was lost that we really needed a copy of still, and so we put those orders in. And then finally, we went around the whole library and collected all of the white flags that were in every shelf. So that is pretty much it. I know inventory is a very important task, and I know that it's going to be tracked a little more in the future than it used to be. So it'll probably end up being a question on the end of the year report, which inventories you did for the year. So we can all make sure that we're doing an inventory every 3 years, and from, even when librarians switch libraries and new librarians come in. So that'll be another task going forward. But hope this helped, and thanks for watching. Okay, I debated about whether to put this section in here because it's not technically part of inventory, but I bet a bunch of people will have questions about it. So this is a short segment on the lost list. Let's just take a little deep dive into the lost list. Now just keep in mind that you only have one lost list for all of Destiny. So this is your day-to-day lost, like a student lost a book or a teacher lost a book and you've marked that book lost. It's also the lost list where inventory dumps all of your lost. Anything that you've marked lost from inventory also ends up in this same lost list. So we're just going to click it here. Currently I have about 20 pages of lost because I've just finished inventory. So this is what happens. Your lost list blows up after inventory, and now it's become kind of annoying because it's just so big. So when we check lost like monthly to see what books we need to replace that people have lost over the month, now they're going to be mixed in with all these other books. And if you notice, it puts them in call number order. And what would really be nice is if they were in date order, because then you would know what days you did inventory, and you would know that those were inventory books from those dates, and you could ignore those. So if I click show all, and then I click printable, I will get everything as one continuous list. And so that way I can print it all, or I can copy it all and paste it into a spreadsheet so that it's sortable. So I would just go Control A, highlight everything, Control C. I would open up a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, and I would paste this in, and then I would be able to sort it. So just a hint to click show all first and then click printable, because if you don't click show all, then you just get one page at a time, which isn't very helpful. Okay, and now another thing I've been advised is to really not mess with the lost list ourselves. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the lost list, you see that there are gadgets here for messing with the lost list. So resetting library materials would bring them all back into the catalog as if they were on the shelf. So you would have had to make a fairly large mistake one day to want to do that. That you would resurrect all your lost and have them back in. So that's where you would do that if you needed to. And note that you can pick a specific day. So you're like, okay, on this day I marked a bunch of things lost, but I didn't mean to. So I'm going to go back to that day. I'm going to pick that day on the gadget. And then I'm going to restore everything that I marked lost that day. And so you can do that here, reset lost. Okay. And then here, you can actually delete things out of your lost. So, like, you have to be really sure about things you want to delete. Like, I know that these are all missing, because I know what happened to these books. They're not coming back. So I could individually delete these. Delete. Yes, I'm sure. So you can do individually delete. Or you can use this gadget. Now notice this gadget is not like this one. This one is one particular day resetting. But this one is a particular day and everything before that day. So it's really dangerous. You put a date in here and you click delete all, everything that was made lost on that day and anything before that day will be deleted. So if you pick today, then everything would be deleted. And I have been advised by LSS that we do not want to do this because the lost list is used for things that we really don't know about. They're using it for statistics, and they're using it for cataloging, and they're using it for different things. So do not mess with your lost list. I think every 2 or 3 years, the IT Fast team will go in and clean the lost list out. And if you have something in particular, individual items that you know you made lost and they're never coming back again, and you know exactly how those ended up in the lost list, you should delete them here individually, but do not use the global delete down here. Okay, so very important. Terry, if you're listening, I put that in. so listen to Terry. Don't delete all your lost. All right, so I hope that has helped. Just keep in mind that you can access your lost list anytime in the inventory module, not just during times that you're in the middle of an inventory. So anytime you want to look at your lost list, going to admin inventory view lost is a handy way of doing that. All right, so hope this helps.